The great ship hung in the blackness of space. It was called the Vessel of Unification. It was a city of metal and light, home to thousands of the Cathar people. Below the ship, a planet turned slowly. It was a world of green forests and blue oceans, designated X97C. To the Cathar, it was another place to be brought into the Imperium, to be pacified. On the bridge, Commander Jinsu watched the main screen. His face was stern and calm. He was a man who believed in order and rules. The mission here was almost finished. The native people, the Xenthi, were a simple species. They were covered in soft fur and lived in small villages. Their weapons were no match for the Cathar. Their resistance was brief and useless. A soft chime sounded. Jinsu turned his head. His science officer, Sumi, stood nearby. She was holding a data slate. Her large, dark eyes were serious. "The final sweep is complete, Commander," she said. "The neurodampening field is active across all population centers. The Xenthi are calm and docile." "Good," Jinsu said. His voice was flat. This was a routine job. There was no glory in it, but it was necessary for the Imperium. "There is one anomaly," Sumi continued. She tapped the slate and an image appeared on a smaller screen. It showed a bipedal creature. It had pale skin, not fur. It wore strange, torn cloth coverings. "We found this one wandering near a ruined survey outpost. The field has no effect on it. It is not Xenthi. It is not in our database." Jinsu looked at the image. The creature looked weak. Its limbs were thin. It had no claws, no natural armor. A lost pet from some trader? He guessed. "Perhaps," Sumi said. "But its physiology is robust. It survived the initial bombardment without injury. It walks upright without difficulty. I have never seen its like. I recommend a full genomic workup. We should know what we have found before we decide what to do with it." Jinsu considered this. Sumi was the best scientist on the ship. If she was curious, it was for a good reason. He did not like unknowns. An unknown could become a threat. "Very well," he said. "Take the specimen to the lab. Do a full scan. Log it as specimen Gamma 7. I want a report by the next cycle." Sumi bowed her head slightly. "It will be done." Down in the sterile white lab, the creature lay on a flat table. Energy fields held its arms and legs in place. It was awake now. Its eyes were open. They were a deep brown color. They did not show panic. They watched everything. This was Chol. He was a human. He was a botanist from a small research outpost on the edge of explored space. He had been collecting plant samples when the sky had filled with fire. He remembered a bright light, a sound like the world tearing apart, and then nothing until now. He saw the tall, gray-skinned beings moving around him. They had 4 thin arms and large black eyes that showed no emotion. He did not struggle against the energy fields. He knew it was pointless. He saved his strength. He watched. He listened. Their language was a series of clicks and hums, but a small device on the wall turned it into words he could understand. "Vital. Signs are stable and surprisingly strong." One of them said, "Begin the physical scan." Another ordered. A light passed over his body. He felt a faint warmth. He kept his breathing even. He saw the one who seemed to be in charge, the one the others called Sumi. She watched him with a sharp, intelligent gaze. "The specimen is conscious," a junior technician said, his voice nervous. "It is not making noise. This is unusual. Most species cry out or struggle." Sumi stepped closer to the table. She looked directly into Chol's eyes. He looked back. He did not blink. He tried to understand her, to read her intentions. She seemed curious, not cruel. "It is observing us," Sumi said, more to herself than to the others. "It is learning." She picked up a long, needle-like device. "I am taking a cellular sample. It will be quick." Chol braced himself. The device touched his arm. There was a small pinch, and then it was over. He let out a slow, quiet breath. He had expected worse. Sumi placed the device into a slot on a large machine. The machine hummed to life. Lights began to flash inside it. "Initiate genomic sequencing," she commanded. "Full-depth analysis. Compare it to the core database." The machine began its work. It was reading the very blueprint of Chol's life, his DNA. It was breaking him down into a string of code. To the Cathar, this code would tell them everything. It would tell them if he was a threat. It would tell them if he was useful. It would tell them what he was. Back on the bridge, Jinsu looked at the planet below. The pacification of X-97C was a success. Soon Cathar overseers would be on the surface, teaching the Xenthi the ways of the Imperium. Order would be established. It was the way of things. His thoughts were interrupted by a message from Sumi. Her voice was calm, but there was a new tension in it. Commander, the sequencing is underway. The preliminary physical data is remarkable. The specimen's bone structure is incredibly dense. Its nervous system is highly complex. It should not function as well as it does. It is a bundle of contradictions. Contradictions can be dangerous, Jinsu replied. Keep me informed. In the lab, Chul continued to watch. The Cathar scientists were busy with their machines. They did not look at him as a person. He was a thing, a puzzle to be solved. He knew his life depended on what their machines found. He hoped they would see he was not a threat. He was just a man who studied plants. He thought about Earth. He thought about the green hills and the wide open skies. It felt very far away. He wondered if anyone knew what had happened to him. He wondered if he would ever see home again. The sequencing machine continued its task. It was a powerful computer, filled with the knowledge of 1,000 conquered worlds. It compared the strange new DNA to every known species. It looked for matches, for patterns, for threats. Deep inside the code, it found something. A small, seemingly useless string of information. It was a sequence that did not make a protein. It did not seem to do anything. The Cathar scientists would have called it junk, but the machine's deep memory, the ancient part of its programming, recognized it. It was a fragment, a ghost of a signal found in a shipwreck that had given the Cathar the stars. A small, unnoticed alert flashed on Sumi's console. She was looking at Chul, studying his calm face, and did not see it. The machine paused its standard analysis. A deeper, older protocol was activating. It began a new comparison, not against living species, but against the sacred ancient texts of technology. The code that built their drives. The code that powered their shields. The machine began to process the result. It was a conclusion so impossible, so world-shattering, that it had to check and check again. In his cell, Chul felt a strange sensation. It was a feeling he could not name. A feeling of connection, like a key turning in a lock he never knew was there. On the bridge, Jinsu waited for the report that would decide the creature's fate. In the lab, the machine finished its final calculation. The main screen, which had been filled with scrolling data, went blank. For a single second it was dark. Then it flashed to life, glowing with a color no Cathar had ever seen, a deep royal impossible gold. And in the center of the screen, words appeared in their own language. Simple words that changed everything. Sumi turned from Chul and looked at the screen. Her breath caught in her throat. Her body went stiff with shock. The message read, "Analysis complete. Result, creator species detected." The silence in the lab was absolute. Sumi stood frozen, her eyes locked on the screen. The words seemed to burn themselves into her mind. Analysis complete. Result, creator species detected. Creator. The word was not a scientific term. It was a word from the old stories, from the beginning of everything. It was a word for the ones who built the foundations of the universe. It was a myth, a legend. Her first thought was a system error, a virus, a cruel joke. But the machine's core was isolated, protected by layers of security. And the color, that deep golden light, it was not a standard system alert. It felt ancient. Her hands trembled as she reached for the console. She typed a command to run a diagnostic. The system responded instantly. System integrity, 100%. No malfunctions detected, data source verified. Specimen Gamma 7 genomic sequence. Result confirmed. Her heart beat hard in her chest. She looked from the screen to the creature on the table. Chul. He was still watching her. His expression had not changed. He looked calm, he looked patient. This was impossible. This soft-skinned, simple bipedal could not be a creator. Creators were beings of energy and light. They were giants who shaped stars. They were not this thing that bled and breathed air. She had to know more. She opened the full data report. The screen filled with complex genetic maps and biological data. She scanned it, her trained eyes looking for the proof for the mistake, and she found it. Or she found what the machine had found. 70% of the specimen's DNA was non-coding. The Cathar called this silent code or junk DNA. It was the leftover garbage of evolution. Every species had some. But 70%? It was an absurd amount. It made no biological sense. It was inefficient. The machine had not seen it as junk. It had cross-referenced these silent sequences against the oldest, most protected database in the Cathar archives. The first foundation code. This was the base programming of their most advanced technology. The mathematics of their hyperdrives. The physics of their shields. The language of their central computers. It was the knowledge they had found in the wreck of a ghost ship at the dawn of their space age. They had spent centuries learning to use it. They never truly understood it. They just followed the instructions. The report highlighted a sequence from Chol's DNA. Then next to it, it showed a piece of the foundation code for a plasma conduit. They were a perfect match, not similar, identical. Another sequence matched the stability algorithm for their gravity generators. Another matched the pattern for their communication lasers. Piece by piece. The silent, useless parts of this creature's body were the building blocks of Cathar civilization. Sumi felt the room spin. This was not a mistake. This was a revelation. The creators were not giants of energy. They were biological beings, and they had left their signature not in stone, not in metal, but in life itself. They had written their blueprints into their own flesh and blood. Her comm unit chimed. It was Commander Jinsu. His voice was impatient. Science Officer Sumi, your report is overdue. What is the status of the specimen? Sumi swallowed. Her mouth was dry. What could she say? How could she explain this? Commander, she said, her voice shaky. The analysis is complete. The results are unprecedented. I must speak with you in private immediately. There was a pause on the other end. Jinsu did not like surprises. Is there a threat? It is more complicated than a threat, sir. It is a matter of historical significance. The highest order. Very well. My ready room now. The connection closed. Sumi took a deep breath. She looked at the junior technicians in the lab. They were staring at her, confused by the golden light on the screen and her reaction. All of you out, she ordered, her voice regaining some of its strength. This data is now classified at the highest level. You will speak of it to no one. Is that clear? They nodded, fear in their eyes, and quickly left the lab. Sumi looked back at Chol. He was still watching her. Did he know? Did he understand what he was? She approached the table slowly. The energy fields still held him. She deactivated the field around his head. He moved his neck slightly, a simple human motion. Can you understand me? Sumi asked, her voice barely a whisper. Chol looked at her. He said nothing, but his eyes seemed aware. They were not the eyes of a confused animal. They were the eyes of someone who was thinking, who was calculating. She had to show Jinsu. She took a data rod and downloaded the full report in the system log. The golden creator species detected message was the first file she saved. Then she turned and walked quickly out of the lab, sealing the door behind her. The creature, the creator, was alone again. In the commander's ready room, Jinsu stood by the large window looking out at the stars. He turned as Sumi entered. This had better be important, Sumi. We are on a schedule. It is, Commander. It is the most important discovery in the history of our species. She placed the data rod into the table's projector. The golden message appeared in the air between them. Jinsu stared at it. His face showed first confusion, then annoyance. What is this, a joke? A religious symbol? I told you to give me a scientific report. This is the report, sir, Sumi said. She opened the genetic comparison. The machine is not malfunctioning. The specimen's DNA contains the foundation code. The code we found in the ghost ship. The code that built our civilization. Jinsu stepped closer, his eyes scanning the data. He was a soldier, not a scientist, but he understood the basics. He saw the matching sequences. His face hardened. This is impossible. It is a trick. The specimen is a contaminant. It has been exposed to our technology, and its genome is corrupted, or the exenthi planted this thing to deceive us. The system confirms the data comes from unaltered, deep-level genetic material, Commander. It is not contamination. It is part of its fundamental biology, and the exenthi are a pre-industrial species. They could not possibly forge this. Jinsu slammed his hand on the table. Then the machine is wrong. I will not have my mission disrupted by a fairy tale. Our purpose is clear. Pacify the planet. Process the specimen. Move on. Process? Sumi asked, her voice rising. Commander, if this is true, that specimen in our lab is the reason we have starships. It is the reason we are here. It is a progenitor, a creator. To process it would be the greatest crime imaginable. Jinsu turned his back to her, looking out at the stars again. He was a practical man. His career, his standing in the Imperium depended on success and order. This discovery was not orderly. It was chaos. It challenged everything. I see no creator, he said coldly. I see a primitive animal on a lab table. I see data that can be explained by error or enemy action. The mission continues. And if you are wrong, Sumi's voice was quiet but firm. If you are wrong, you will have destroyed the single most significant being we have ever encountered. The Imperium's own foundational texts speak of the creators with reverence. Would you spit on that? Jinsu was silent for a long time. The only sound was the low hum of the ship. Finally, he spoke without turning around. Keep it contained. Run more tests. Non-lethal tests. I want proof I can see with my own eyes, not just words on a screen. Find me something that cannot be argued with. Until then, no one else is to know of this. Is that understood? Sumi bowed her head. It was not the victory she wanted, but it was a chance. Yes, Commander. She turned and left the room. She had to find proof. She had to show him what the creature could do. She had to make him see the truth before his fear and pride made him do something terrible. Back in the lab, Chol lay on the table. He felt the energy field still holding him. But he also felt something else. A connection, a low hum that was not a sound but a feeling. It was the ship. He could feel the ship's power, its systems, its life. It was like a song he had always known but had never heard before. He closed his eyes and listened. The silence in the lab was heavy. Chol lay on the cold table, feeling the hum of the ship through the metal. It was a strange feeling. It was not just a vibration. It was like a whisper in his blood. He did not understand it, but he did not fight it. He listened. He thought about the scientist, Sumi. He had seen the shock on her face when she looked at the screen. He did not know what the screen said, but he knew it was important. Her fear was gone. It was replaced by something else. Something like awe or terror. He heard the door open. Sumi walked back in. She was alone. Her face was pale, but her eyes were sharp. She looked at him not as a thing, but as a puzzle. A dangerous puzzle. She walked to the console and typed a command. The energy fields holding him down vanished. Chol sat up slowly. His muscles were stiff. He rubbed his wrists where the energy had held him. He looked at Sumi, waiting. She did not speak. Instead, she went to a cabinet and took out a small package. She opened it. Inside was a bar of food. She also took a cup of water. She placed them on a small table near him. Then she stepped back, watching him. Chul looked at the food and water. Was this a test? Was it poisoned? He decided it did not matter. He was thirsty and hungry. He picked up the cup and drank. The water was cool and clean. He ate the bar. It tasted like nothing he knew, but it was food. Sumi watched him. Most species, when scared, would not eat. They would throw the food or cry. This Chol, was calm. He was practical. This was another point in favor of the impossible idea in her head. She had to prove it to Jinsu. She needed a test. A simple test. She went to the main computer. She called up a technical schematic. It was a diagram of the ship's secondary power grid. There was a small ongoing problem. A power fluctuation in one of the conduits. It was a minor issue. The engineers had not been able to fix it. It was not dangerous, just annoying. She did not expect him to understand it. The symbols and lines would be meaningless to a primitive creature. She turned the screen towards him. She pointed at the diagram. Chul looked at the screen. He saw a web of lines and glowing symbols. He did not know what they meant. He did not know the language, but he felt something. The hum in his blood changed. It became a low ache near one part of the diagram. One of the lines felt wrong. It felt like a sour note in a song. He looked from the screen to Sumi. Her face was questioning. He stood up. She tensed but did not stop him. He walked to the screen. He reached out his hand. He did not know the names of the symbols. He only knew the feeling. He pointed to the line that felt wrong. Sumi's eyes widened. He was pointing directly at the unstable conduit. It was impossible. He had no tools, no sensors. He had just looked. Then Chul did something else. He put his finger on the screen. On the faulty line. Then he dragged his finger to another part of the diagram, a connection that was not being used. He did not know why. It just felt right. It felt like the song was smooth again. The moment his finger touched the new connection, a chime sounded from the console. Sumi looked down. An alert was flashing. Power fluctuation in conduit. 7 gamma has stabilized. Issue resolved. Her breath caught in her throat. It was not a guess. It was not luck. He had fixed it. With a touch, without understanding what he was doing. This was the proof. This was what she needed. Just then the door to the lab opened. Commander Jinsu walked in. He had grown impatient. He wanted to see this proof for himself. He saw Chul standing by the screen, not restrained. His face darkened with anger. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. "Why is the specimen free?" Sumi turned to him, her heart pounding. "Commander, look." She showed him the console. "The fluctuation in 7 gamma. It has been a problem for weeks. He just fixed it." Jinsu glanced at the screen. Coincidence. He touched the screen and got lucky. "It was not luck," Sumi insisted. He pointed to the exact problem. Then he showed us the solution. He did not learn this. He felt it. Jinsu looked at Chul. Chul looked back. He saw the anger and doubt in the commander's eyes. He understood the dynamic now. Sumi was curious. The commander was afraid. Chul knew he had to do more. He had to speak without words. He looked around the room. His eyes fell on a simple light panel on the wall. It was glowing with a steady white light. He focused on it. He thought about the color red. He did not know how he was doing it. He just pushed the feeling, the idea of red, towards the light. The white light flickered. Then it shifted. It glowed a deep, solid red. Jinsu stared. His mouth opened slightly. That was not a computer diagram. That was a simple light. There were no controls nearby. The creature had not moved. Sumi whispered, "He is not just reading the code, Commander. He is interacting with it. His very presence talks to our technology." Jinsu took a step back. His practical world was crumbling. This was not an error. This was not a trick. This was real. The primitive animal was somehow in tune with the ship in a way they could never be. He looked from the red light to Chul's calm face. A new fear grew in him. Not fear of the unknown, but fear of what this meant for him, for his command, for his entire people. If this was true, they were not the masters of their own destiny. They were living in a house built by another, and the owner had just walked in. "Contain it," Jinsu said, his voice low and rough. "But do not harm it. I need to speak with the High Command. This is beyond me." He turned and walked quickly out of the lab, his mind racing. Sumi was left alone with Chul again. The red light still glowed on the wall. She looked at him. The specimen, the creator. For the first time, she spoke to him not as a scientist, but as a person. "Who are you?" she asked. Chul looked at her. He understood the question in her tone. He slowly raised his hand and placed it flat on his chest. "My name," he said in a quiet, rough voice, "is Chul." It was the first word he had spoken. His voice was strange to her ears, but the meaning was clear. He had a name. He was a person. Sumi felt a shiver go down her spine. The story was no longer about a creature in a lab. It was about a man named Chul, from a people they had called primitive, who held the key to everything they were. And they had locked him in a cage. The word hung in the air between them. Chul, a name. Not a number. Not a specimen. A person. Sumi felt the world shift under her feet. All her training, all her life as a scientist had been about classifying things, putting them in boxes. This was no longer something that could be boxed. He had a name. He came from a people, a culture, a people who had somehow built the foundation of her own. You can speak," she said, her voice soft with wonder. Chul nodded slowly. He looked tired. "I can understand you. The machine on the wall, it makes your words clear." He looked around the lab, his eyes taking in the advanced equipment. He seemed sad. "Your technology. It is familiar, like a song I heard long ago." Sumi moved closer, her scientific curiosity overpowering her fear. "A song? What do you mean?" Chul struggled to find the words. "It is a feeling. In my bones, when I look at your machines, I do not see what they do. I feel if they are happy or sad." "That light," he said, pointing to the red panel. It was singing a steady note. I asked it to change its song, and it did. He was describing an intuitive, empathic connection to technology itself. It was beyond anything in Cathar science. Just then, a low, urgent alarm blared through the ship. Red lights flashed along the corridor outside the lab. Sumi's head snapped up. A gravity surge in the main engine core. The ship shuddered. A deep groan echoed through the metal walls. From the bridge, Commander Jinsu's voice shouted over the comms. All hands. Emergency containment to the core. The warp field is destabilizing. This was no minor fluctuation. This was a catastrophic failure. If the core overloaded, it would tear the ship apart. Sumi ran to her console, her fingers flying. The data was chaotic. Pressure was building. The containment fields were failing. The engineers were reporting they had lost control. They could not stop it. We're going to lose the ship. A panicked voice cried over the comm. Sumi looked at the screens, her mind racing through solutions, but every protocol was failing. They were out of options. Her eyes fell on Chul. He was standing perfectly still, his head tilted. His eyes were closed. He seemed to be listening to something. The song, he whispered. It is screaming. Can you help? Sumi asked, the question feeling both insane and like their only hope. Chul did not answer with words. He walked to the main console. The complex schematics of the warp core flashed, covered in red warning symbols. The other scientists in the lab shrank back from him, but Sumi held up a hand, telling them to wait. Chul placed his hands flat on the console. He did not type. He did not touch the screen. He just closed his eyes. On the bridge, Jinsu was holding onto his chair as the ship shook violently. Report. What is happening? Sir, the containment field. It's restabilizing. The pressure is dropping. How? What did engineering do? Nothing, sir. They did nothing. It's fixing itself. In the lab, Sumi watched the screens in disbelief. The chaotic lines of energy and pressure were smoothing out, weaving themselves back into a stable, harmonious pattern. It was like watching a storm calm in an instant because someone asked it to. Chul opened his eyes. He took a deep, shaky breath and removed his hands from the console. The ship's shuddering stopped. The red alarm light switched off. The normal soft hum of the ship returned. The silence that followed was louder than the alarm had been. The comm on Sumi's console lit up. It was Jinsu. His face appeared on the screen. He looked pale. Sumi, what just happened? Sumi looked from Jinsu's stunned face to Chul, who was now sitting on the edge of the lab table, looking exhausted. He did it, Commander, Sumi said, her voice filled with a new, unshakable certainty. Chul did it. He calmed the core. He did what all our engineers could not. He did not use tools. He did not use commands. He listened to it. And he fixed it. Jinsu stared through the screen. He was not looking at Sumi. He was looking at Chul. The last of his doubt, his pride, his resistance crumbled away. The evidence was undeniable. The being they had captured had just saved every single life on the ship with a power they could not comprehend. He had thought of himself as a commander of a great warship. Now he felt like a child who had been playing with a dangerous toy, and the toy's maker had just stepped in to stop him from breaking it. Bring him, Jinsu said, his voice hollow. Bring him to the bridge. Sumi turned to Chul. The commander wishes to see you. On the bridge, Chul looked at her. He saw the fear was gone from her eyes. It was replaced by respect. He nodded. Okay. He stood up. He did not walk like a prisoner. He walked like a guest. Sumi walked beside him, not leading him but accompanying him. The crew members in the corridor pressed themselves against the walls as he passed, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. Word was spreading. They entered the bridge. It was a large, circular room with a huge view screen showing the stars. Every crew member turned to look. Jinsu stood in the center. He looked at Chul. The human looked small and ordinary in the middle of the advanced bridge, but no one saw him as ordinary anymore. Jinsu took a step forward. He did something then that no Cathar commander ever did to a lesser species. He bowed. It was a deep, formal bow of respect and submission. The entire bridge crew fell silent. Jinsu straightened up. His voice was clear and strong, meant for everyone to hear. The pacification of planet X97C is cancelled, he announced. Recall all ground forces. Stand down all weapons. He then turned to Chul. We did not know. Please, what would you have us do? All eyes were on Chul. He looked at the view screen at the green and blue planet below. He looked at the faces of the Cathar, who were now looking to him for guidance. He was just a botanist. But he understood what was at stake. He pointed a finger at the planet on the screen. Then he made a gentle cradling motion with his hands. Then he pointed out at the vast field of stars. He made the same motion but wider, as if offering the stars to them. The meaning was simple and everyone understood. Protect this world. Do not conquer it. And look to the stars not for conquest but for wonder. Jinsu bowed his head again. It will be done. The bridge was utterly silent. The crew stared at their commander, who was bowing to the simple, unarmed being from a lab cell. They had heard his orders. Cancel the mission. Stand down. It was unheard of. Chol looked at Jinsu, then at the crew. He saw their confusion and their fear. He knew his gestures were not enough. They needed to understand more. They needed to hear it not from a commander, but from their systems. From the very technology they trusted. He walked slowly to the center of the bridge. His steps were quiet on the smooth floor. He stopped before the main view screen, which showed the peaceful image of the planet below. The Cathar soldiers watched him, unsure what to do. Sumi stood near Jinsu. She felt a nervous tension. What would he do now? Chul did not look at anyone. He looked at the screen. He raised his hand, not in a threat, but as if asking for silence. Then he began to speak. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the silent bridge. Your ship, he said. It is afraid. A murmur went through the crew. The ship was a machine. It could not feel fear. On the main screen, the image of the planet flickered. It was replaced by a complex schematic of the vessel of unification. The ship's own internal diagnostic display, but it was not showing numbers and graphs. It was showing something else. The schematic was overlaid with a soft, pulsing light. A deep, troubled red glow pulsed from the weapon systems, the warhead base, the troop deployment pods. The light throbbed like a sick heartbeat. The song of these parts is harsh, Chul said, his eyes closed in concentration. It is a song of breaking, of ending. He moved his hand slightly. The red glow in the weapon systems faded. A calm blue light spread through them instead. A status alert popped up on a secondary screen. Weapon systems, standby, safety protocols engaged. The crew stared, stunned. He had not touched a control. Then Chul pointed to the engine core. A bright, joyful yellow light shone from it on the schematic. This part, it wants to move. It wants to explore. It is happy to travel. He smiled a little. It was the first time they had seen him smile. He then pointed to the long-range sensors. A dull gray color covered them. They are asleep. They have not been asked to look for wonder, only for targets. As he spoke, the gray over the sensors shimmered and turned a curious, vibrant green. The sensors began to actively scan, not the planet for weaknesses, but the surrounding nebula, a nearby comet, the simple beauty of the star system. Data streams appeared, not about mineral deposits, but about cosmic radiation patterns and stellar evolution. He was talking to the ship, and the ship was listening. It was changing its very nature based on his will. Jinsu watched, his professional mind completely overwhelmed. This was not fixing a problem. This was a fundamental rewrite. This was a creator not just building a machine, but nurturing it, teaching it. Chol turned from the screen and looked at Jinsu. His expression was serious again. You have great power, Chol said, but you use it like a club. To beat others into shape. You see a world and you think, how can it serve me? He pointed to the planet on the screen, which had returned to the view. You do not ask, what can I learn from it? What song does its world sing? He then looked out at the star field on the view screen. The universe is full of music. You have been covering your ears and shouting. He walked up to the main command chair, Jinsu's chair. He did not sit in it. He placed a hand on its armrest. A new image appeared on the main screen. It was a star chart. But it was not a Cathar military chart. It was a beautiful, swirling map of galaxies and nebulae. One star pulsed with a soft, gentle light. It felt familiar. It felt like home. Chol looked at the star, and a deep sadness filled his eyes. That is my song. That is where I am from. The message was clear. He was not a god. He was a person, far from home, who had been captured by children playing with fire. Jinsu finally found his voice. It was rough with emotion. What is your will? He asked again. This time his question meant for all of them. Chul looked at him, then at Sumi, and then at every crew member on the bridge. "Stop," he said simply. "Stop the conquest. The fear. Listen, learn. Your purpose is not to be the strongest. Your purpose is to be the most curious, to be the best listeners." He pointed to the glowing star on the map. "Help me go home, and I will help you find your true path. Not the path of an empire, the path of a student." He lowered his hand. The bridge schematic and the star map faded, and the simple view of the planet returned. The silence returned, but it was a different silence. It was not a silence of shock or fear. It was a silence of thought, of reflection. These warriors, these scientists, these conquerors had just been shown that their entire way of life was a mistake. Their great technology was a gift they had been using as a weapon, and the giver was standing before them asking for a ride home. Jinsu looked at his crew. He saw their faces. The confusion was still there, but he also saw something new, a spark of wonder, a hunger for the new song Chul had promised. He straightened his uniform. He made a decision. "Navigation," Jinsu said, his voice firm and clear. "Plot a course." The order hung in the air. "Plot a course." The navigation officer, a young Cathar named Day, looked from his commander to the human and back again. His hands hesitated over his console. "A course to where, sir?" Jinsu did not look at Day. His eyes were fixed on the star map Chul had shown them, the one with the single pulsing star that meant home. "To that star," Jinsu said, his voice low but firm. "The one he showed us." A ripple of movement went through the bridge crew. This was not a minor change. This was a rebellion. The Imperium had given them a mission, pacify X-97C. They were instead turning their back on it, on their orders, on everything they knew, to follow a stranger. No one protested. No one questioned. They had all seen the ship respond to Chul's will. They had felt the truth in his words. The old way felt hollow now like a shell. Day's hands flew across his console. "Plotting a course now, Commander. It is a long journey, through uncharted space." "Then it will be a journey of discovery," Jinsu replied. He turned to his communication officer. "Send a tight beam message to the ground forces. All units are to disengage immediately and return to the ship. We are leaving." The officer looked worried. "Commander, the High Command will demand an explanation." Jinsu finally turned to look at his crew. He saw the fear and the uncertainty. He also saw the new fragile hope. "Let them demand," Jinsu said. "We are not abandoning our duty. We are finding a greater one. We will tell them we are on a reconnaissance mission. By the time they learn the truth, we will be too far away to recall." It was a risk. It could mean court-martial, exile. But the alternative, returning to the old blind conquest, was now unthinkable. The ship came to life with a new purpose. The low hum of the engines changed its tone. It was no longer the menacing drone of a warship, but a brighter, more curious sound. The great vessel turned slowly, its nose pulling away from the green planet below and aiming for the deep black. Chul stood by the view screen, watching the stars shift. He felt a deep ache in his heart. He was going home, or at least he was starting the journey. Sumi came to stand beside him. "What is it like?" she asked softly. "Your world?" Chul thought for a moment. "It is green and blue. There is water everywhere. The air smells of life, of soil and plants after the rain." He looked at her. "It is not perfect. My people, we also fight. We also have fear. We forget the song too sometimes. But we are trying to remember. He was not a perfect god from a perfect world. He was just a man from a world that was also learning." This made him more real to Sumi, not less. Weeks turned into months. The vessel of unification was no longer a ship of war. It became a ship of learning. Under Chul's quiet guidance, everything changed. The weapons labs were converted into research centers. Scientists who once designed bombs now studied the composition of distant nebulae. The troop barracks became gardens where they tried to grow plants from seed samples Chul had kept in his pocket from his own world. The ship itself seemed to thrive. Systems that had always run with a slight inefficiency now purred. The food synthesizers produced meals that were suddenly more flavorful. The light panels glowed with a warmer, more comfortable light. Chul did not give orders. He simply was. His presence was a constant, gentle reminder. He would sit with the engineers, not telling them what to do, but asking questions. "Why does this feel wrong to you?" he would ask, pointing to a power relay, and by talking it through, they would find a better way themselves. He spent most of his time with Sumi. She taught him about Cathar history, about their rapid, aggressive rise to power. He listened and he understood. They were a young, scared species who had found a powerful tool and used it to hide their fear. One day they were in the main garden. A small tree from Chul's seeds was beginning to sprout. "The Imperium has sent another message," Sumi said, her voice tense. "They know we are not on a reconnaissance mission. They have declared Commander Jinsu a traitor. Any ship that finds us is ordered to bring us in by force." Chul touched the fragile green shoot of the tree. "Are you afraid?" "Yes," Sumi said honestly, "but not of being caught. I am afraid of going back to what we were. This feels right." "This feels like what we were meant to be," Chul nodded. "That feeling is the most important thing. Hold on to it." Later that cycle, a new star system appeared on the long-range sensors. It was a yellow star with a family of planets. One of them, the third planet, was a vibrant blue and green marble. Chul was on the bridge when it appeared. He walked to the view screen and looked at it. A slow smile spread across his face. It was a smile of such profound joy and relief that every Cathar on the bridge felt it. "Home," he whispered. The course was set for the third planet. As they drew closer, they began to detect signals. Radio waves. Complex transmissions. A web of communication that spoke of a busy technological world. They were not a primitive species. They were a people much like the Cathar, but who had not forgotten how to listen to the song. Jinsu stood beside Chul. "What will we find down there, Chul? Will they welcome us?" Chul looked at the beautiful, familiar world. "They will be cautious. You came here in a warship, but they will also be curious. They will want to learn your song as I have learned yours." The great ship settled into a high orbit around Earth. It did not hide. It did not power its weapons. It simply turned on all its lights, a gesture of peace. Down on the planet, telescopes turned towards them. Radars painted their hull. The world held its breath. On the bridge of the vessel of unification, Jinsu looked at his crew. They were no longer conquerors. They were ambassadors. They were students. He turned to the communication officer. "Open a channel. Send a simple message." On all frequencies, the officer nodded. "What is the message, sir?" Jinsu looked at Chul, who gave a small, approving nod. Jinsu took a deep breath. "Send this, we come in peace. We have brought one of your people home, and we have so much to learn." The message was sent out into the void, towards the blue planet below. It was the end of one story, and the beginning of a much greater one. The story of how humanity, the forgotten creators, welcomed their children home.